And hello, here we are again. Welcome to a new episode of CAV HQ Live. I am your host, Cavboss, with my faithful sidekick, James, Mad
As
Dog.
I.
Hopefully everybody can hear James this time. Sure, I think everything's on.
Yeah, double checking my settings too. I was hearing you twice.
Yes, you don't want the echo.
Well, I
So,
don't need two cab bosses.
yes, we can hear. All right, good.
They're already on it with the infantry.
I know. They were talking about it on Facebook today. Everybody was excited about infantry. Okay.
Lemming is trying to teach me something, but I'm not learning right now. I'm not in learning mode.
Oh, I think he's that it's crunching you a little bit, but you're okay. You're fine. I think you need to turn the color definition separate a little bit. Or let me see. That actually may be on my end.
I was going to say, I don't think I have any control over that.
Okay, no, it's on my end.
I'm just a phone call.
You know, mine changed on me yesterday too, so it may be something wacky. All right, so let's go full.
A digital ghost.
Yeah.
So Pigpen 77. Hi, hello. How you doing? I'm trying to read from my little tablet here.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, because I had to turn mine up, and then.
That look good?
Yeah, no, I got you fixed for the most part. It's all good. So, how is everybody tonight? I hope well.
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. As a matter of fact, I am excited to be here. I was happy to hear your chat yesterday. That I caught the tail end of your terrain thing after I got out of the movies, and I was really excited to hear you talking about the writing idea, the community writing thing.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to try to flesh that out a little bit, and I'll put something up about that a little later. Maybe that'll be something we could talk about next week, a little more in depth. Once we get that going. Yeah, we got quite a bit done yesterday. We got more than I thought I was going to. That's one of the problems with building terrain live. You know, that's the big difference between the YouTuber, you know, because they record everything and then edit it down. So in 15 minutes, you see 2 weeks worth of build. And that doesn't always come as well as it would in Twitch. So,
what was that cooking show that was on back when we were very young, where they would put the thing in the oven and then take the completed one out like 1 second later?
Yeah, that was all kind of things. Well, what's his name? Bam he did it that way. Throw something in the oven and then go to the other one and pull it out because it had already been cooked.
Yeah.
So, always fun. And of course, there was, what's her name? What was that? The lady, Julia Childs.
Yeah, that's it. I couldn't think of her name.
Yeah.
So that honestly, that is my favorite thing about art of any kind on Twitch. You know, the people that are doing it are doing it live. And so even the best of them make mistakes, right? You know, something happens. A spot of paint goes awry. They grab the wrong brush. You know, all kinds of things happen. The same exact things that happen to me when I'm painting, and I can watch somebody who's really good at it recover.
Right.
They'll show you all kinds of little tricks, and the same thing is true with your terrain stream. I mean, you know, bits don't fit. This is how you handle it. I'm really looking forward to seeing you paint that MDF, because every time I've tried to paint MDF, it just drinks the paint.
Yes. Well, that's the reason that's the reason I take a rattle can and just spray the shit out of it with primer. So Dave, you might turn your connection down a little bit so that maybe you're not getting the higher end. I think you should be able to set it like at 720 now. And that might help a little bit.
Or if worse comes to worse, you can go just audio.
Yeah.
And just listen to us.
We broadcast in 1080, but I think we changed it so that you could set it down to 720. Hopefully. I think we made that change at one point when somebody explained it to me. Oh, you can do that? Oh, cool.
Yeah. All kinds of tricks out there. Krugerrand, I hope you get to feeling better. I'm sorry you caught the cold. I'm excited to see what you do with your Templars.
Make sure if you haven't followed us though, to hit the little follow button at the bottom. It's all free. It just lets us know that we are getting more people interested in what we're doing. I don't know if you noticed, we went over 100, James.
Oh, I had not.
Yeah.
I had not seen the count.
I think it was last week we got there. So I think we're over that now.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Very
nice. And then I got quite a bit of work done on the dragon or the beast. I watched the last episode that caught up with the Raised by Wolves on HBO Max, and that's really what got me inspired again to do this, because they've got 2 or 3 big skeletal dead things on the ground. Including a giant snake that's all coiled up, and it's just a skeleton.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool looking.
Interesting.
So if I ever get back into, because I'm dying to, I watch guys on YouTube and stuff like that, and I love 28 and 32 millimeter is not necessarily my favorite gaming scale, but is obviously my favorite terrain scale. It's just, you can build so many more cool big things than what you can at the real small scales. So, and now with access to 3D printers and everything like that, I would really like to get more into.
Yeah,
I'm doing some fantasy stuff.
Tiny side note: I've fallen in love recently with the Critical Role D&D show, and they do 3D terrains. They're supported by a bunch of companies, and it's just always nice to see them pull out the terrain with water and smoke effects. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I want to role play. So we need to keep that in mind for the CAV role playing game. We got to get some high tech terrain,
some high tech stuff there. Well, and we've been working on another project for another company here with some 32 millimeter figures, and Chris came in today, and we were looking over the videos for some of the figures so far, and I looked at him and I said, this is just giving me wood for getting on our figures. I said, we got to get them done. We got to get more, because they're all sculpted. They just need to be posed and different things added to them. So from that side of it, it's like, how cool! I'm so ready to do some of that.
I would really like to see that, what a working CAV pilot looks like. I mean, just flight suits, or is it, like low tech like that other game? What's the deal?
No, they're pretty much flight suits, and then basically helmets that cover their whole head. I don't know if you're familiar with how the F-35 works with the pilot with the helmet.
No.
You can be the pilots when they're in the F-35, they're completely enclosed in their helmet, and if they look down at the bottom of their plane, they actually see the ground below them. Wow. The plane is gone. I mean, it just projects from cameras it basically uses the same technology. If you've ever seen a Cadillac, have you ever got in a Cadillac and it shows now the above, when you're backing and you can look at the deal and it shows everything around you, and you're like, is there like a satellite up above me? How does it do that? And it was funny. We were out at a Gamma show back when that very first came out, and we had rented a Tahoe from the rental place. So we got over there to pick it up, and they were all out of Tahoes. So they gave us a brand new Cadillac Escalade, their Tahoe version, And
Yeah, I've seen.
yeah, and that was the first time we saw that backup camera where it shows from the top and it shows the ground out around it and everything. You just watch and we sit there for 10 minutes trying to figure out how the hell are they getting that to look, because you can see out on the floor ground, around it.
Yeah.
And laying on, looking down below it and finding all the little cameras where they're just the way that they're set, that they soak up such a big picture or whatever. So that was really cool. And that's the way the F-35 does. They've got all these little cameras over it. So you actually, if you look out to the left, you don't see a wing or anything. You see the ground and the air. It's just like you're floating out in the air. So
What a strange concept.
yes. So basically that's basically how a cab works. They're in an immersive. Of course, they have pedals for their feet and hands and everything to move things or whatever. But as far as all the data that they need, their HUD and everything like that, that's all projected into their mind, I guess, or into their whatever, however it hooks up. So so that part of it, and it has controls too. It's got screens and stuff. If the helmet malfunctions or because of damage, they can't use it or something. Or, if a technician needs to get in it and, take it out to give it a good wash, they have to have some ability to be able to drive it. So it does have those as backup controls.
So just to summarize, what I'm really hearing is that my freebooter pilot, Mad Dog, drives his CAV wearing a helmet and his pajamas. That's exactly what I heard.
He could. Well, but as a pirate, you may not even be wearing a helmet. You may be using the regular controls. So
works for me, as long as the PJs are there.
May not be a high deal, but yeah. I'm sure there's some CAV pilots that go out there in the buff. So
all right, now PG-13.
Now it's a party.
PG-13.
He may not even wear pants. That's what I'm saying. He may be out there doing a Homer Simpson or something.
Leave it to Thunderhead. Leave it to Thunderhead.
All right.
I mean, in the other, go ahead.
No, finish.
Let's get back to the real
concept.
stuff. I was just going to say, in the other game, it makes sense to go in lightly clothed because they're sitting in a sauna.
Right, because of the heat.
CAV pilots have it better.
Yeah, when you're basically powered by a supercharged battery that recharges itself, it's not not nearly as hot heat wise and everything. Yeah. So you got that going for you.
That's one of my favorite fluff things. The fact that the CAVs all have that digital camo, so I can paint them up in their battle dress colors, and it's perfectly fine. They just change to camo right before they go on the tabletop. I don't have to think about them, or I can paint them up weathered as heck and be battle dressed as soon as I need to hit the parade ground. It's a pretty sweet idea.
Or you could use the pattern from your pajamas.
Don't tempt him.
Yes. Well, see,
Mad Dog
covered by my little unicorn or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why wouldn't he be a brony?
Oh, there's there's 2 shows right there.
Yep, at least.
Okay.
All right, infantry.
All right.
What do the infantry guys wear?
They are going to wear all kinds of stuff. They probably don't go too much out in the buff. That's probably not the best thing for them to do. So we talked a little bit. One of our early shows, we talked about infantry as far as how they are organized. So I was going to kind of go over that again just a little bit, so that that we can cover that, just in case anybody's got any questions on that. So, and then I have this actually set up here. Voila.
Uh-oh.
Where we can.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Demo time.
Second here. I think I need to do. Got you wiped out here. Okay. So, and then I don't need to be on here. Turn me off. All right. So here we have 5 bases worth of infantry. So in the game, a squad, regard of whatever faction you're playing, or if it's just a generic one, will have a set number of bases. So each base, it doesn't really matter how many guys you put on a base. if you want one guy on there, if you want to put, you can put two on there. These will have four. You can go in and with all the different little guys we have available, if you want to have them, with rifles, and then maybe add a SAM launcher or a Panzerfaust or something to one, so that it's that particular kind of a base or whatever you can. If you want to have put your officer on one and say that's your command, and put an NCO on another one or something. There's a lot of ways you can mix up all those figures from the different packs that are available. There's a couple of mortar squad or mortar bases here, and a rifle, and I think a laser or something here. So that's the main thing that people get kind of confused on, is what is a squad and what is a base. So the base is the actual, whether you use hex bases, round bases, or whatever. It's just whatever figures that you put on there. They don't have to match up with the particular faction or whatever. That all comes in when you add bases to the squad. So as far as regular play, no. If infantry were allowed in the tournament, then yes. If you use 40 millimeter, whatever base that you use has to be completed through the entire force for a tournament, other than
quads.
For quads or aircraft.
Yep.
Yeah, you can use the standard aircraft base, which is the round one with the pin, no matter what shapes you use. If you do something custom, if you use, and you use a hex one, then everybody needs to be on hexes. If you use so that's the only place where it gets changed out, because the aircraft really don't matter as far as whether it's round or whatever, since they don't interact with the terrain. So anyway, so that's what I want to make sure everybody understands, though, that when you see a squad, and a squad of whatever, if it's Mount Vernon with 10 or whatever, that's how many bases go in that squad. But as far as the base, you can have one guy on it, you can have 10 guys on it. You don't even have to have guys on it. You can just have a base and say, hey, this is an infantry base. So yeah, however you want to do it. We want you to put as many guys on there, so you have to buy more, but that's just, that's just marketing. So, so let's go back to, turn this off now. Turn me back on. Hello.
John.
Yeah. Oh, my arm disappears. I can't hit you in the head. So,
right.
Yeah.
Lag.
Are we lagging?
Just a little bit of spinning there after you made whatever change you made when you reached off to the right.
Oh, well, but we'll see. Let's see if it kicks back here. It did this last night, and everybody told me theirs was fine. So, but since we're both seeing it.
Yeah. It flickered again, and now it's spinning. Came back for a second, but now it's spinning.
There it goes. I think we're catching up.
All right.
We'll give it a second here.
Hire more hamsters.
All right. So now let's talk about what's the pluses and minuses of infantry before we talk about how to use them. There's a lot of things that people don't realize they kind of got snuck into the rules, or they're hidden and they didn't necessarily catch it because they're so got the deer in the headlight look, because they go, oh, I get to play a CAV. So one of the things is infantry automatically have two, they are soft as an SA, and they also receive the pop-up SA. So the cool thing about being soft is there are a lot of the heavier duty weapons that have great hard damage, but don't have the greatest soft damage. Or none. Yeah, or have any ability to hit them. So, so that's kind of a cool thing. Obviously, that's where you need to watch out for the autocannons and rockets and so forth. with their soft numbers, but it cuts down the number of weapons down a whole lot. With pop-up, they can use any level 1 cover to totally be, if they get up within 1 inch of it, to not be seen, and be able to jump up and attack and come back down there. So really the only way that you're able to get them is with Overwatch. So that's a good thing that they have. Next thing is you cannot target lock and you cannot tag infantry. So right there off the bat, that takes guided missiles out. You can't use guided missiles at all versus infantry. Rockets are obviously you can and are a lot more dangerous with the Ravage SA. But yeah, so you lose GMs right there. Max have strike, so they can't do damage to a soft target at all. So you take out a lot of the big stuff right off the bat, and you can still use MRACs to do damage, but their soft number is usually pretty low, so that doesn't do them a whole lot of good. The other thing that a lot of people forget about infantry is they can only take 1 point of damage per attacker. So if you can have a Tiamat and shoots 4 rocket 20s at them. They can only take 1 point of damage, no matter how many on the stuff that goes in there.
Well, the rockets have Ravage, though.
The rockets have Ravage, so that would double if they're caught out in the open. But yeah, so that is a big thing for infantry. Now if you have 3 different guys during the same activation shoot at them, then obviously they can take 3 points of damage or whatever. But per attacker, they can only take 1 point of damage per round. One thing that, and this is something too that it actually needs to be added to the errata because it got left in the book, out of the book, is that particular damage thing only applies against other models. So if you have an infantry model attack an infantry model and they do 2 points of damage, then the infantry will take 2 points of damage. So if infantry versus infantry can actually do more damage. So it's kind of like, think of it as kind of a somewhat of a Ravage for infantry. But that's something I caught the other day that I need to make sure I get put back into the deal. The other thing is most infantry are immune from model states. You can't suppress them. You can't stun them. They cannot.
Can't knock them down.
Yeah, they don't knock down. They don't have to make pilot checks. They don't. They can't be disrupted as far as with IDC cannon. So that cuts out a lot of things too that they're done. Your infantry can also use a special action to do what is called dig in, which allows them to choose an area and basically dig into the ground to keep them from getting the open damage. And it also provides them cover so they can take advantage of their pop-up or whatever. So that's kind of a cool thing that they can do.
Isn't there an SA that does something similar to that?
Well, there's SA, which is wrapped, which gets rid of the open damage bonus, but it doesn't allow them to actually get the cover and everything like that.
But an infantry unit with rat moving in the open
would not take double damage, right?
They wouldn't take the Ravage damage from a rocket shot or anything like that.
Yep.
Okay.
So what are the good things that infantry are good for? Because everybody looks at it and go, they've only got 3 SAs, but remember they only can take 1 point at a time. So, especially if there's only one guy out there. What about shock? The result of shock is being suppressed or stunned. So guess what? They can't be shot.
Can they be set on fire?
They can be set on fire. I believe they are susceptible to burning. But shock as a GM uh, SA, so they can't be shot with guided missiles. So either way, shock doesn't have any effect on them. So roles. Obviously, defense. Infantry are great, if especially in a city or a base or something that you're trying to hold. They are cheap. You can put a bunch of them in there. They may not all have the greatest amount of damage, unless you set them up with Panzerfaust or something like that. So they're good. Now, that's a little bit of a drawback game mechanic wise, because infantry are cheap. You can buy a bunch of them and put a lot out there. And so you have to be careful that you don't bog your game down by having, 60 bases worth of infantry per side out there, just from the standpoint of, they don't move very far unless they're mechanized or whatever. And so you got to be careful there too. It's very easy to throw a bunch in there, but by the same token, they die fast too. So it's really how you want to play. So be careful with that.
Let's back up a question.
Okay.
I have a rules question that I didn't hear you mention.
Okay.
What elevation are infantry?
They are 1.
So they're elevation 1. Do they block line of sight?
Not to infantry cannot block line of sight. Period.
Not even to other infantry.
Not even to other infantry. Yeah.
Okay.
They're considered spread out enough that chances are that you can see through where they're standing.
But the regular elevation rules apply to them.
As far as line of sight, yeah, if they're behind a level 1 something or up against a tank or something like that, then you can't see them.
Gotcha.
With that being, what was just my thought that I had in there? Oh, about movement. You can move through friendly infantry, so they don't block your ability to walk through there. You cannot walk through enemy infantry though.
And that applies to all models, CAVs,
Yep.
Tanks, everything?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They can move through a friendly infantry area without having them move first or whatever. So that can come in good when you're needing to move something through there quick to get in front of them.
It's really good if you try and build an assault-based infantry force where you want to try and get into close combat with people. When you deploy out of your vehicle, or you can swarm through each other to get to all 6 sides of an enemy.
Yes. And that's the other place that infantry are great for, is for close assault. They have the ability to stack their attack in close assault by each additional stand that you're able to base that you can get up involved. So, if you have 6 bases worth of infantry and can get all 6 of those around a CAV or a tank or whatnot, that gives you up a +5 to your close assault roll. So they have pretty decent close assault numbers anyway. And then you add a +5 in there and then get a decent dice roll, average dice roll or higher. Infantry can do damage quick. And that
sounds like,
and that also keeps that CAV from having the ability to move. If you get him locked up like that, he's got to kill somebody to get out of the way if he wants to try to break. So the off.
This is kind of a.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the offside of that is when you do that, everybody takes damage. So if you go in there and surround him with 6 infantry and you lose the roll and you take 1 point of damage, all 6 bases of infantry will take a point of damage.
So that's an exception to that rule that applies to close combat?
Well, no, if you got because you normally are only targeting a base. A squad can only, or a stand can only take 1 point of damage. So not a squad, it's by base. A base can only take 1 point of damage.
Okay, so the CAV or the vehicle that's surrounded by the infantry is fighting all of the other stands at one time?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
If you go in there and do it like that, now you can take all 6 of them around there and do 6 rolls, and close assaulting 6 times, but you lose that plus. But if you lose, only that particular base will only take the damage. It's like a salvo. If they all join together for a mass attack
Right,
and
right.
they take damage, and everybody takes damage.
So just to clarify, if I surround a cav with 6 bases of infantry, I can choose to have each one of the bases attack individually, and then we do 6 separate close combat rules,
Yes.
one for each
Yeah,
base. So some may win, some may lose.
correct.
Got it. All right. So here's a question. It's kind of hard for me to explain. It would be easier to show on a table, but imagine I'm swarming in with infantry, and I have one stand of infantry that contacts 2 vehicles or 2 CAVs, and both of the CAVs are in combat with infantry from my side. That one stand that's in contact with both enemy models, it can only fight one of the enemy models?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
you'll just
check.
have to choose one. And if they're not in the same squad, or
Right.
where they activate at the same time, then they can't give bonuses to one another.
Gotcha.
So that's something to take into account. And that's where really where your APCs work.
hmm
You know, you can especially some of the fast ones or some of the aircraft transports or whatever. I mean, that's when you get into tactics. That's a great tactic to do with infantry. Is you know um, fill up 3 or 4 transports or 3 or 4 aircraft with
hmm
2 or 3 stands worth of infantry. Make sure they all activate at the same time. Um, have your transports double move, um, and then you know, within 1 or 2 turns they can be right in the middle of the action, and then they just
Right.
disperse all that infantry in the middle of something, especially if you're sitting back there with a fire support squad or something that doesn't have any
hmm
close in weapons. You know, a squad of infantry, it may take them a few rolls, but you're stuck. They're going to
Yeah.
damage the hell out of you, or kill you. So um, another cool thing, and that kind of goes along with that deal, is you can specialize infantry. You know, there's a lot of
hmm
upgrades that you can, you know, get them for jump infantry, so you can drop them out of planes, or airborne, and then jump that
I was
allows
going to
them,
say it's called
yeah,
airborne.
or
Yeah.
jump where they can go through the air with jump packs, and you know, you can add grenadiers, you know, that are better in close combat, and you know, so there's lots of stuff that you can, if you want to specialize infantry for a special role, the rules allow you to set that up if you have something kind of in your mind that you're trying to do with a particular squad. Again, taking into account, if you come out there with 60 squads worth of infantry, you're really going to slow your game down. Um,
I feel like anybody that's playing that game talked about it ahead of time. Probably you're not
yes.
gonna. Nobody's ever gonna allow that in a tournament. So if Ross and I are playing and I say, hey, I want to try a bunch of infantry, he'll know ahead of time.
Yeah. So, you know, we usually try to, and the squad build rules kind of, um, will limit that too. You know, I mean, you can keep buying squads, but, um, and that's really where infantry squads are good too, is when you're trying to build that force. And, you know, let's say you build a CAV squad and you throw a recon squad on there, but you really want a fire support squad too. You can go in and, for cheap, build a rifle squad of infantry, which is a primary squad, throw it in on the deal, and then have the ability to add your fire support squad. So they are kind of a good way to, as filler, if you're trying to build a certain type of build or something like that that you want, for a particular battle or something. So infantry are good for kind of, to stack stuff in there, for, you know, because you can put a, you know, I think a worst case would be a Malvernus rifle squad would be probably, I actually printed out some data cards so that I'd have those to look at, because I was going to talk about the data cards too, but on these, but light infantry, um, with rifle are 27 points. So worst case, a Malvernon squad with 10 bases is 270 points. So, you
Nice.
know, not a lot of points to, I mean, you know, you could have a recon cav or something in there, but, or a tank, but by the same token, with 10 stands of infantry, especially if you go mechanized and throw in a couple of transports for them. They can get dangerous. They can get deadly. So
So help me make sure that I understand the squad composition there. So a squad of, let's say, just infantry. It's a, normally factions have what, like four units in a squad typically, right?
4 models, yeah,
Four
right,
models. So
minimum,
when you
yeah.
say model, but you're talking about infantry, do you mean stand?
I'm saying if you go in and buy a squad, that's
Hmm.
going to be however many stands or bases that go with that particular faction. I think that under the generic rules, they have to have 6 to 10, I think, or 6 to 12, 8 to 12. I forget the exact number right there. So, but Malvernans, they're in their faction doctrines, their base infantry squads have 10 stands. So if you buy a
Okay.
squad, one squad of rifle regular
Okay.
infantry, that would give you 10 bases worth of infantry in that squad. And then you would pay 27 points for each one of those.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. I was just a little confused by the number of stands you were talking about, but you're talking about using a doctrine,
Yes.
which changes things.
Well, and
Okay.
sometimes I get my words crossed up. So I'm old and
Krugerrand wants an essay that allows his light infantry to ride on the outside of his banshees.
all you'd have to do is take your Banshee and go into the software and drop an essay or something and get you at least one hard point and change it over to
Yeah. Transport.
transport, and voila, you can put some
Yeah.
infantry in there.
Unfortunately, transport is one entire hard point, which is pretty valuable. I mean, right before we came on, I was so Ross Hines started making a freebooter model the other day, and he had a great role playing style idea that his Banshee modification was going to have transport, so he could bring in like a salvage squad with him. So when we're raiding planets, we have somebody to go get the stuff and bring it back.
Right.
And so I was trying to copy his idea, and I had to give up Wizzo to get a free hard point onto my Simba so I could add a transport to have a squad of raiders. Transport's expensive.
Yes. Yeah. It's a full hard point. For that reason, I mean, it could be very easily, if you give a half a one or 2 for 1 or something like that, you could
Hmm.
really stack a model quick in order to do that. Now, that being said, only quads and vehicles and aircraft can have transport essays. You can't put them in two-legged calves. So
Right.
anybody thinking down that lines. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the freebooters that have two-legged calves that want to bring salvage squad, they just got a giant cargo net, and the two-legged calves or the infantry get in there, and then we hang it on their belts,
Yeah,
sort of
well,
like belt
and
infantry.
that's where when you're doing something like that, you're just going to have to. Everybody's going to have to talk because I mean, certainly that's something that could be done. That
Yep.
I mean, even the Banshee, you can in your game if you want to allow them to get up there and ride on the Banshee without
Hmm.
making any changes, that would be something that it could do. But that's something we just can't rule wise.
Right.
It's yeah, you just have so
Yeah, it
many.
doesn't need to be a
Yeah,
rule.
but it's something that you can house put in there, and if you need to add some points to it, or
Mhm.
and just say look at some of the upgrades. Some of them are there's like the armor one where you can add a plus point of armor to it or whatever by the description
Right.
is you're actually adding sandbags and pieces of metal and stuff onto the outside. You could use that and just say that it's instead of getting a plus point of armor, you're getting enabled to carry one transport's worth of infantry or something. So, um, that goes into and that's really a lot of those upgrades are designed that way. There was, if you sit there and you think about all the cool things you could add and put in there, all of a
Hmm.
sudden I've got a whole book of nothing but upgrades. So we tried to kind of hit some ones that could be applied in multiple situations if you needed to, with just a little bit of a little bit of role playing, a little bit of
Right.
whatever in there that you wanted to add. So um, I did want to address a question that I hear a lot is where are the data cards for infantry?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the way to explain that is there, because as you we were talking earlier, there's so many different ways that you can set up your infantry. You can have them set up with rifles, with lasers, with mortars, with Panzerfaust, with stingers. I mean, there's just so many different combinations. And then if you start throwing SAs in there and things like that, so you want to. There's just no way that we can have that many data cards. I mean, they're just. I'd be afraid to. We'll have to get some mathematician sometime to sit down and tell us how many. It's probably some kind of a 3 million kind of a number or something like that. It would be crazy. So we don't do data cards. Now, if you look if you go to the CAV HQ under the downloads and where we have the cards printed out from the CP program, we have put in some generic. I think there's because you have light infantry, you have heavy infantry, and you have powered armor now. And so there's 3 or 4 or 5, 6, I don't know, 5 or 6 cards for each of the 3 types that are just kind of generic. That here's a rifle one, here's a stinger one, here's a mortar one. So you want to, if you're just looking for something like that, those are there available. Those are in the CP program. But if you're trying to use them in the force manager, those will show up. But you can actually go in the CP program, design the infantry that you want it, save it into that folder, and the force manager program will pull those files up as well, so that you can custom design your infantry. So that's a big thing there with the way that's set up. And speaking too of mortar infantry, in the game, CAV mortars are not the mortars like from World War II. What are mortars in the CAV universe are basically they fire like that. They put them in a tube and they shoot out the top or whatever, but they're actually anti-CAV rockets, or what they are, missiles. Their version of a missile. So you can actually have infantry mortar squads that are able to do serious damage to CAVs at range.
I've seen them up to 5.5. I think is the biggest one I've seen.
Yeah. So I mean, they can definitely hit hard, especially if you got a whole squad of them, and all you shoot, 3, 4, 5. They call them Hummer rockets, Hummer missiles. All of a sudden, it can be deadly. It can be dangerous. So, and they are able to self-guide themselves. So once they lock on and get on the target, you better be ready. Yes.
That's a lot of information.
Yes.
It's a lot of stuff about infantry.
I know. We're trying to pile it in. We got 30 or 45 minutes to talk about and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say earlier we were talking about essays that you might want to buy for your infantry, and John mentioned airborne. One of the things that when I was reading about infantry, I noticed was that if you want to do an infantry assault, you have to spend an action normally to exit the vehicle that you're being transported in. But if you take airborne, and I think there's another version of airborne. Airborne allows you to jump out of airplanes, and there's one for jumping out of vehicles, I think.
Right, airborne. Well, airborne is itself is if you're airborne, you're able to exit from an aircraft without it landing.
Right.
Okay. Then there's a different essay that allows a model to exit a vehicle without paying the extra point for the load or unload deal. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I didn't bring the sheet up here with me. But it's not called airborne. It's got a different name to it.
Well, whatever its name is, it allows you to get out of the vehicle without having to spend an action. So you can jump out of the vehicle and have both of your actions available. So it extends your assault range a little bit, gives you a few more options for when you want to get out of those. Well,
especially
your vehicle to do a dedicated
especially with
assault.
the aircraft, because then you don't even have to wait for them to land. You can come. Right. You can storm training allows them to get out of the vehicle.
Tiger Wraith.
always count on Hugh. So
He's either got the book open or just the perfect memory, or maybe a little bit of
I
both.
think it's memory. He catches me on stuff all the time. I'm like, I mean, it's just like that, and I know he's at
Yep.
work. So either that or he's got a really cool boss that lets him bring his CAV book while he's working. So yeah, and another thing that you can do back with the upgrades is that's where you can get the motorized infantry.
Oh yeah.
You can add that as an upgrade to them, and basically if you want to have them on motorcycles or grav sleds, or I mean even that covers. I mean if you wanted to put them on horses, if you wanted to put them on horses, you could. So that's a cool way to build that into your storyline. All right, so I think that I have rattled on here long enough and probably have confused everybody even more, but let's go ahead and take questions. Anybody got something you want me to explain again, go back over, answer for this or that? We're trying to convince you to immediately get online at the end of the show and go order 20 packs of infantry.
Buy yourself a bucket of infantry.
And if anybody's not noticed, we did release the heavy infantry. We did those a few months ago, but those are all brand new sculpts, and they look really nice when they're down and painted. The pictures, sometimes people look at them and because it's kind of zoomed in, but you have to kind of take into account to get something to look right. It looks one way on the screen, but when it's actually printed out and down, or a model down at the little, it makes a big difference. And they're designed to paint easy. There are generic infantry, are all generic, so there's not a particular faction. Generally, you want to just paint by color or something like that. If you're trying to be, if you're trying to do rock infantry, then paint them red.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
how soon
for the Raider transport? Well, as we talked about a little bit last week, we are in the process of bringing our production in-house. We probably will have some more information about that next week, I hope. But we are pushing towards the end of the year to have that all in and set up, because pretty much like every other company game-wise out there, we've pretty much blown 20 off at this point. So that all your plans, all your release schedules have all gone to hell. Oh no, you can use I mean, you can use whatever colors that you want on there. I'm just saying that if if you're trying to be more, just so that that here these are rock infantry, you can use red or whatever. But if you want to camo them and then use them for every faction or whatever, I mean, again, there's no official paint schemes there for them. There's just no individual packs.
Sculpts.
Yeah, for each one. Yeah. We are going to do some other sculpts. I want to update the light and the power armor down the road and do some different variations of them. But that kind of comes into play. I'm pretty relatively sure that with the new production method that we're going to be using, that we will probably be switching the infantry over to a different material as opposed to metal. So that's something we can do down the road, that we can change to. But getting back to the Raider transport, once we have that all put in and set up and everything like that, we are going to go to a more of a regular monthly release. So a lot of the stuff that's out there that we've listed or whatever, especially anything that's out of the original models like the Raider and stuff that haven't been done before we do a lot of the new stuff, we'll start putting those out there. So be ready for that. Like I said, I think next year you're going to see a lot of new models.
Gimli, I think you've got the right mind of it. I mean, the idea is to paint the models so that you're happy. If you want them to, to look like you spent hours painting them, paint them that way. It's just whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, we are not the paint Nazis. This is and that's really what we're looking at. We had so many plans for this year, and obviously by even in February, the writing was already on the wall as we started already seeing conventions cancel, and
Mm-hmm.
especially when Adepticon said that they were done. That was a big one that I was like, oh my gosh, this year is going downhill quick. So we just move things out because there's just no, we count on those shows to go out and do things and show off stuff and new things and get it spread out. And um, we weren't nearly prepared for the online presence that that was required because of the changes. So we had to get set up for that, which you're seeing kind of the results of that with we've got a Twitch channel now, and doing stuff on YouTube and everything like that. So we're adding lots of new stuff, and we're learning how to make it work, and the way everything looks. I think we're getting there ever so slowly.
So John, I mean, if you can we talk a little bit about next year's physical schedule?
Yeah.
I mean, do you, what's the first actual in-person convention you think, if everything goes perfectly, you'll be at next year?
Well, probably
Little Wars, maybe?
Probably Little Wars. They're right there in March.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't going to do Adepticon this year, but because they have really embraced being Games Workshop again, big time. So we were looking, Little Wars is right up, just basically down the street from where they're at. And they actually do it in the old hotel that Little Wars, or that Adepticon used to be in. So that's probably the first show that we'll try to do. I'm going to do a lot more shows again next year. So we're still,
assuming everything's okay.
Yeah, we're still waiting. I mean, nobody's saying anything yet. We haven't received any kind of invites. We haven't, anything at all. So it's just that's too early to say. I did want to try to do CincyCon this year. I've had a lot of people tell me that was a good show, and I think they're early. They're an earlier show.
That in Cincinnati?
Cincinnati. Yes, you're good, James.
I used to live in Louisville.
Yeah. And Chris, there at Thunderhead, there is KublaCon out in Denver that I would like to come to. That's always been a good convention that everybody's talked to about. So, because I know that you're out in that area, and I have a lot of relatives out there in Denver too. So, it's just we're just kind of in a hold pattern. We're trying to get everybody's still trying to figure out what they're going to do, and a lot of these conventions are having to renegotiate things with their hotels. Hotels are not very happy with at all either, with things getting canceled and stuff, and they can tend to be a little more rough about dealing with, big corporate kind of thing. Oh, you're just a little game convention. Well, here's what we're going to tell you got to do. So
I suspect the contracts that the conventions sign with their hotels will be a lot more detailed going forward.
Yes. Well, I'm sure, especially on a bunch of the bigger shows, that they probably still had to write a check. So depending on the hotel and what kind of relationship they had with the people, there's probably a lot of shows out there that had to write a pretty decent check and didn't have anything to help offset that for the year. So that could have a lot of impact on shows next year too.
Especially the little smaller shows, the niche ones, like the little conventions here in Tulsa that we get, the small things in Oklahoma City. They don't have a lot of leeway.
Yeah,
they can't take a lot of damage financially.
No, for sure. So that's and that's a lot of shows are going to have to deal with that, and and it's just a different, just a different atmosphere out there. It's just a lot of shows are attaching themselves to a specific game or a genre or something too. So that kind of takes away,
Mhm.
that's really the reasons why I don't do Origins or Gen Cons anymore. They had
Mhm.
they are setting themselves up for a whole different level of things that they're trying to do, especially Gen Con. That the smaller companies like mine, we just get lost in the crowd, and sales are we have the best sales at those shows, but it also costs us 5 times more to be there,
Mhm.
and got hotel rooms for Origins and Gen Con, are $250, $300 a night. And, if you bring any kind of staff or anything, that's one of the reasons I try to use my boys and stuff like that. At least we can all kind of stay together in one room.
Yeah.
You bring a
Yeah.
bunch of
Yeah.
extra staff that we've done over a couple of times over the years. And I've got 3 or 4 hotel rooms. It gets ugly quick.
It's very
Yeah.
ugly. It's the equivalent of having a store in the mall. I
Yeah.
mean, you can
Yeah.
have a mom and pop store at the strip mall, or you can sit downtown at the big fancy mall, but you got to pay for
Yeah.
it.
For sure. That's the reason why you see a lot of the game stores in the malls now that are doing, the little kiosk where they're just kind of
Yeah.
set up out in the middle and selling the more popular stuff. So um, our industry is going through a big, I mean, the world obviously because everything has changed, but we about every 10 years, every 15 years, something happens that really has an effect on the industry and changes the way everything is doing. And I think that from our side of it, it's pushed a lot of people to consider to be more doing things online.
Mhm.
We've certainly seen our store and everything online. Uh, that side of it for the summer is the best summer we've ever had. So that side of it, but everything's got to give and go. So
Mhm.
anyway, so what else? What else can we answer for you tonight? Because we're just about running out of time without making everybody um, stay on longer. I don't need James to turn into a pumpkin on me.
Mhm.
It
It's that time of
is
year.
that
It's that,
time of
it's
the
that, that
year. Yeah.
time of year.
Pumpkin spice. That's your nickname for
Pumpkin
October,
spice.
by the way.
Mad Dog and now
Mad Dog,
pumpkin
you are
spice.
pumpkin spice for the month of October.
As long as I get to wear pajamas while I pilot my
You
cab, I'm all
can.
right.
It's expected for you to wear that, and I'll send you a little hat to wear for next week.
All right.
All right, so let's spend a couple minutes. Last minute questions, tight fast. We got to get in here and go. For a new product, do you have a particular faction or force? No, we're going to hit. We are going across the board. With us going with monthly releases, you will every other month you will probably see something from each of the factions. So, yeah,
Nice.
start out because we've got a lot of. I mean, just right off the bat, we want to get all the aircraft out that was in the last
Yep.
Kickstarter. So there's 5 new aircraft that'll come out. Um, that'll be in a lot more better realm than what we were able to do with the short
Mhm.
run with the resin. We've got the
But,
Cobra.
tho- but that's only 3
Uh,
factions.
yeah,
That's
but we got
only
yeah, but
3
we got
factions.
other planes. We'll coming out with other
Good.
things. We've got
All
the
right.
new the Despot B. We've got the Cobra, the King Cobra. There's all those Amethyl vehicles that we've been showing. We've got we are going to be hitting the ground running. So I think Amethyl will probably be, especially model wise, because of the tanks. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and the CAV. Yeah,
Cossack.
you've got Chris working on the Kodiak that he's working
Mhm.
on Saturdays. That I'm hoping that might get finished up this Saturday. Um, we had a little meeting today. We've got some changes that are going to be made to it, and I think I don't think they're big ones. He probably thinks they are, but but that's the when you're the art director, yeah, just go do that. It doesn't matter. It does, just do it. It'll be okay. So it'll only take 5 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, literally
Literally.
five
Only
minutes. It'll
5
be
minutes.
done. So
Just add.
yeah, yeah. Put another leg right in the middle of it.
No, no, no. Those battle tech things are
Oh,
ugly.
the
So,
the three-legged things or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah. So,
All right.
okay. Transport
902.
trucks. Well, some of that, there's all kinds of in-scale stuff out there, you know, engineering, those kind of things. There's plenty of stuff out there before I take a slot for something like that. I want to get like the Raider APC needs to go out. So we do have we have a whole set of uh, engineering vehicles that are already done that we want to get on mold. So, all right, Hugh's being a smartass. So we're going to call the show and be done and get everybody on their little way. So thank you for joining us tonight. Chris will be here Saturday at 2:00 Central Time working on the Kodiak. And then I will be back Tuesday night for the next terrain show. I think I'm going to have finally my corporate headquarters done. I've been working on it some today while we were sitting here. So, well, maybe we'll get a little further on the reptile dragon / whatever scatter train and hopefully get started on something new. So, I guess, James, say goodnight.
It's time to say goodnight.
We'll see y'all later. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Take care.